setting up SharePoint for MOST. We've covered scan to folder and scan to email, which are two of the more basic features that are installed with MOST, and they're, I think I said earlier, those screens are installed by default. And you may have noticed that so far I haven't seen any SharePoint screens in my MOST Designer as far as collections. And the reason is every plugin that we install for MOST comes with its own pre-designed screens. So I've installed the SharePoint plugin to the server, as well as the MOST for SharePoint plugin, but I still have to import the screens to the MOST Designer. And the reason we do that is to help avoid cluttering the MOST screens with unused designs. So if I look under MOST SharePoint, we'll have a shortcut here that says to install the MOST screen. I'm going to select yes to import them. And I'm not sure if you noticed, but as it refreshed the screen, the SharePoint collection became available on the side here. The side of the MOST Designer will allow us to see the collections that are configured, as well as all the different screens that are configured. The screens or tabs are separated based on size, and depending on the machine you plan on utilizing, a different size may be required to be designed. You'll notice that there's 4 RICO sizes, the most common being the WVGA. The HVGA is the older style device where it has kind of a yellowish screen. It's a little bit wider but shorter compared to kind of what we see with most desktop. Most desktop is actually using the WVGA size. The micro WVGA size is the much smaller screen size. It's almost the size of like a cell phone screen at the moment. And then the SVGA is the largest size. But like I said, the most common is the WVGA to encounter. There's several HP screen sizes. To be honest, I'm not sure which is the most common. But depending on the device, you would need to design the correct size. And then there's a Lexmark screen size, which we designate as WVGA. It's very similar in size to the RICO WVGA. I think it's only a few pixels taller or shorter. In case it does help, once a screen size is designed in any of these, once a screen is designed in any of these sizes, you can right-click on one of the screens to copy it to a different size to kind of help reduce the amount of design that needs to be done. Design that needs to be completed. Going on a little bit of a tangent there just to explain what I was looking at on the right side there. But the main point I was trying to make is that the SharePoint collection is now available in the MOST Designer. So I'm going to close these screens just to refresh them. And if I select the demo user, we can see the SharePoint collection is now available. And if I use the arrow buttons here, I can actually assign it to this demo account so we can start using it. I'm going to save those changes. So at this point, I've given the user access to the SharePoint screen. However, just like the email server needed to be configured, the SharePoint system needs to be configured as well. So again, I'm going to go back into the global variables, and you'll see there's a handful of new variables specified. These ones are prefixed with the letters SP, kind of being an abbreviation for SharePoint. And each of the plugin's user manuals will describe what each of these variables corresponds to help configure them in case you have any trouble with them. I'm going to configure this for our tutorial site. And to do that, I'm first going to need to look up the password. because our tutorial site has a password that changes periodically, we have a website available that will show us the most recent password. And this is, again, documented in the user manual for the tutorials. I'm just going to copy the username and password into their corresponding fields here. And you'll notice I'm entering the username and password as the proxy username and password. Essentially what that's going to do for the tutorial is anybody that logs into MOST is going to authenticate to the SharePoint site using the specified username and password. Now, if the SharePoint site was an internal SharePoint system, or I guess even on the cloud, we could use different credentials to authenticate to that instead of a proxy. It's just for the tutorial. This is the simplest way to demonstrate it. I'm going to log into the SharePoint site just so we could see the end result and confirm that the document reaches the site correctly. I'm also going to copy the URL into the settings so that we know that's the site that it will be uploaded to.